Hi, thanks for joining me. I am here with Axel Hutt, the creator of Angel's Power, which is a very cool comic having to do with angels and dragons and all sorts of very cool fantasy things. Do you want to give us a little intro into the comic?
Yeah, so it's a story that follows Angel who lost her memories because whenever angels sleep, right? Well, they're not supposed to sleep. They're actually supposed to be awake at all time.
Oh
And
wow.
so when they lose consciousness for whatever reason, their memories are wiped out
Hmm.
and they start over. And so she's just been brainwashed because everything where we said she doesn't remember anything. And
Wow.
as it turns out, there's a lot of corruption around them, and the angels are not exactly the good guys in that story. So she has to figure it out, regain some control over what's going on and what she does and how she interacts with the world. Yeah.
Um, And yeah, one of the things that I think is really interesting about it is kind of like you were saying that the angels aren't necessarily the good guys. Um, so what is it that kind of I guess drew you to? Because I'm also writing a story that has to do with kind of angels and demons. I'm still in the outlining stages, but kind of it's a really different story, but in a similar kind of way, kind of looking at some of the like, well, are the demons really the bad guys, and are the
Mhm.
angels really what they say they are? So what is it that I guess kind of draws you to that kind of story?
Well, I just kind of like having morally gray characters and
Hmm.
how just to play with the dynamics of we're the good guys, they're the bad guys,
Yeah.
and vice versa, right? Everybody is the hero of their own story, and when in reality it's a little bit gray everywhere, and there's nuance to everything, and so I like to play with that, with the perception of each other, the angel to the demons to angels. I just like to play with that kind of dynamics in the story, really how the characters perceive each other.
Yeah, that's really cool too, because I also like morally gray characters.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
the main character of my series, No Spell Lasts Forever, is starts off at least as a little bit of an anti-hero. She uses magic, but kind of for some not so great things. She kind of helps some criminals and things. But she evolves. Uh, but it's so yeah, kind of the morally gray characters. But then what you're doing is really cool too, because it's not just like the reader's perception of this one character, it's the characters' perceptions of each other too, which kind of
Mhm.
adds another layer.
Yeah, they just all have different views of the same events. And also there's a lot of brainwashing on her side because of the memory thing. She just didn't have, knowledge is power. You have to know who you are and what happened, and history of the past as well. And she didn't have that once
Yeah.
she was rewritten. And so what they call this phenomenon of angels losing their memory and then coming back and waking up again, they're just being rewritten because the others just put whatever they want into their heads, right? So she thinks she's the good guy, and then she's that's what she's been told, and then she realized, oh, I've been used to do bad things, and now I can see more of the picture. I can see that was wrong, and she wants to get the full picture now. She wants to do because she wants to do the right thing
Yeah.
ultimately, but she just missing pieces.
Yeah, that's very cool. And I feel like that would be a really interesting type of character as a writer, to write. Because I feel like so much of it is when you're creating a character is kind of creating their background and their motivations. Um, and when she doesn't even really know that herself, that would be fun, but also challenging as a
Yeah,
writer to work
yeah,
on a character.
because as a character, she wants to be a good person.
Mhm.
She wants to. she cares, right? But she came into the wrong side, and now she has to go to the bad side. But I mean, none of the sides are perfect either. She's just trying to. It's more difficult than just, oh, they are good. No, they are good, right? It's not exactly a mirror either, right? This just, it's complicated. And so she's having to navigate all that and make, then she has to make her own decisions, and maybe she's not gonna have an easy decision to make. Maybe it's not gonna be easy once she has all the full picture. So yeah, so it's just having to deal with difficult choices also. And then while she's trying to learn the other side, she has to become the bad guy to the other guys, right? Because she's not allowed to do that, right? So now she's, on the fence about everything, and she's
Yeah.
in a very uncomfortable position. After a while, she's just, oh. And then does she make friends? Does she involve people and put them in danger? It's, you know, complicated for her.
Yeah, for sure. Sounds like I like that. I like that it's complicated like that because I feel like a story like that, like you could have gone the route where she thinks she knows who she is and then finds out she's really been with the bad guys and then just switches teams and like, okay, now I'm with the good guys. And that's kind of like the arc of the story. But I think
Yeah.
that would be such a more like simplistic
Yeah, it's
version of
just
it and
too
not
simple.
realistic.
You're
Yeah.
right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so she's just finding out that it's not that simple, and she
Yeah.
has to deal with that, right? Kind of how it's like in real life a little bit, it's
Yeah.
not
For
always so
sure.
clear and so simple. You
Yeah.
just, you have to build your own way of making decisions and all that. So
Yeah. Very cool. Um, I also really like that you have like dragons, and so you're kind of mixing this kind of like religious imagery with kind of some fantasy stuff. I think that's really
mhm.
cool. And I was looking at the site, and you have kind of the maps for the areas where the story takes place. So it feels like there's been a lot of world building that seems really cool. So how do
Yeah,
you kind of go
almost too
about
much.
that? Oh no, I liked it. I thought it was cool.
Yeah, there's a lot of world building around it because I was building this world for so long. So
Mhm.
I had to really concentrate on one area, but I really want to tell other stories in the same world after this one is done with, because there's so
Oh,
much.
exciting.
I
Yeah,
could
it
make
definitely seems.
stories forever.
Yeah.
There's so much that happens. Yeah.
And how did you decide to kind of combine like the religious imagery with kind of the fantasy side of it? I think that's really interesting.
I just enjoyed the 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 Catholic kind of imagery and
Mhm.
the names and all that as an aesthetic, purely as an aesthetic, because I'm not
Mhm.
religious. I don't believe in anything. And so they all become visuals for me. And it's just, I enjoy toying around with that because none
Yeah,
of them have any real correlation to their original uh, meaning, right?
yeah.
I reused some of the names, and but they're not inspired by the original characters at all.
Mhm.
So it's just we find them in strange places.
Yeah. That's I agree. I think it's really interesting. Like in No Spell Lasts Forever, I have the devil is one of the characters. And in this other story that I'm outlining, um, there's like even kind of more sort of like religious iconography, I guess, or imagery. But I also am not really like a religious person. I mean, I was raised Catholic kind of growing up, but I don't really feel like a religious person anymore.
Mm.
And so I've been kind of asking myself, like, well, why am I like, what is it? Why am I drawn to like putting this imagery in these stories? And I think it's like, I don't know, just the archetypes. Um, it is so archetypal, like the good and the
Hmm.
evil, and
That's true.
putting
Yeah.
that in there so then you can interrogate it and say like, well, is this really how it is? I think is what draws me to it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good
Mhm.
point. Yeah, it's fun to deconstruct it and
Yeah.
reorganize it in a fun way.
Yeah, exactly. I think deconstruct is the right word for sure. I like that.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yes.
Yeah, it's really purely an aesthetic for me. I mean, in the cathedral, the churches, there's just an atmosphere, and
Yeah.
I love religious choirs and like chants and things like that. I just love it, even though it doesn't mean anything religious for me. It's just I find it very beautiful, and
Yeah. hmm
it's just
Aesthetically, it's very
yeah, yeah.
beautiful.
I just like it.
Um, so I guess what's coming up with Angel's Power? Do you have I think I saw another trade coming up.
Yeah, so I'm trying to get the second book printed. I
Okay.
did launch earlier in February, but it didn't work out. I didn't prepare enough. I think I could have done more, and it wasn't the right time. But I'm gonna try that again, maybe in 5 to 6 months, probably
Okay. Ooh,
something like that. I just want to get the second one printed, and while that goes on, I'm working on the third book on
okay.
the actual pages. Yeah.
Wow. Nice.
Yeah. I would like to try to finish the third one within the next 2 years or so. I mean, it takes a very long time because, okay, the comic doesn't really make any money,
Yeah.
but I want to finish it, right? I
Yeah.
just, I just have to take really long breaks to work on stuff that actually makes money.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Making
it's
comics is time
difficult.
consuming.
Yeah, it's very time consuming. It's like a lot of work to do.
It's not easy.
It's very hard because there are a lot of pages, right? My books are they're like 400 pages at least.
Wow.
And like the second one is 400, and I don't know how big the third one's gonna be. Oh my God.
And when you're doing the writing and the art, both,
Yeah,
it's
yeah, I do
a
everything.
lot of work.
The design and yeah, the cover art. I do
Wow.
everything. It's very hard.
Sure.
It's so hard. Do you write your story? Do you draw as well, or
I am the writer. I'm not an artist,
the writer? Yeah,
but
okay.
I'm a writer.
That's cool. Yeah, no, it's
I've
it's
worked
so
with some
much
really
work.
amazing artists, which has been a lot of fun.
That's fun. Yeah. It's nice to do everything myself because I really have a lot maximum control over it, but
hmm
it's exhausting.
Yeah, I thought about that. Like, I wonder what it would feel like if I were doing my own art too. But then that's always like my next thought. I'm like, but it would be so time consuming.
It's so time consuming. I used to be able to finish one page in a day,
Wow.
um, but not anymore. I'm not young enough anymore. I need at least 2 days. Well, it depends on the page, but usually 2 days to finish one. And it takes the whole day, so I can't do anything else during that time.
Yeah.
So I'm doing either I'm working and making money or I'm working on the book. So
Yeah.
it's tough
That's
to
how it goes with making, even with writing. It's
yeah.
the same. Like I'm either at work or I'm writing or I'm like trying to promote the stuff that I write.
Right, you have to promote the stuff too. Like the that other part also is insane. I'm so bad at it. I'm terrible. I mean, you saw I couldn't even get live on the
Oh, that's
Facebook and
crazy.
social media. I don't even have an Instagram anymore. It's just I'm
It's
so
a
bad
lot.
at it.
I feel like the promotion, like it's interesting because doing the promotion part of it, like I've connected with a lot of other creators through doing that, and I wouldn't have otherwise. And I really enjoy that part of the promotional side of it. But then it is really time consuming, and I spend like at least as much time doing that as actually writing. It's
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
bananas.
yeah, it's crazy the amount of work it takes to do this, and it's for nothing. It's just because I just
Because we're
I
like
got to
compelled to do
we love doing it, right? I have to put it out into the world somehow. I don't know.
it.
Because I've been doing this story for years now. It just takes a long time.
So,
But I really want to write other stories now. And so I have to finish this one first because I don't want to start another before this one is over. It doesn't seem fair to have.
that's my problem too. I have so many ideas in my head. I'm like, I just want to do them all.
Yeah, but the mistake that I made was to start with a long format,
Mhm.
right? A three books thing, thousands of pages. I mean, it's
Wow.
over 600 pages right now, and I shouldn't have done that. I should have done a very short, a one shot, 100 page maybe. And instead, I did that. Like, why? Why did I
I
do
have
that?
that feeling with like projects that I've done too, where I've been like, well, maybe I should have just tried to do something like shorter because it would be easier to try to like pitch it. But I don't know. I go back and forth and I think like, well, but also like I did it this length because it like this was the length it kind of needed to be. Like this was the length I needed to have to tell the story in the way that I wanted to tell it. So I try not to, I don't know, get too down on myself for that. And be like,
Yeah.
okay, well, maybe I can just do something short in addition to this longer one.
Yeah, I beat myself up for doing that
I do
because no, I
too.
have still like hundreds of pages ahead of me to finish it, and it's not gonna. I can't make it shorter. It just needs that
Yeah.
kind of space to complete.
Yeah.
Like
And
if
there
I
are
made it
stories that are like
shorter,
that.
it wouldn't work.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I
Yeah.
have to.
You definitely like sometimes it just like it needs that space to just be told in the right way.
You need that space, but I should have just written a short story instead. It was stupid. But yeah,
Fun.
it's fun when it gets completed.
Yeah, that is a good feeling. So you've also done some gaming illustration, which I was
Yeah,
looking a little bit about.
yeah,
That's exciting and some Star Wars work.
yeah. So I've been doing a lot of illustration on this whole time, right? When I was drawing my comic as well. Um, and recently, I mean, I've done so much work for the recent one that came out was Star Wars Unlimited. It sounds like it's doing pretty well, so it's nice because it came out in early March, and I've been getting a lot of emails and messages from fans of the games about the,
Oh,
the
cool.
art that they love, and
Oh, that's awesome.
it's very cute. Yeah, they seem to like it a lot, and yeah, it's pretty nice. I haven't really posted any of the artwork yet. I'm just waiting to see if they want us to post stuff like that. Usually
Yeah.
they do, but I haven't really seen anybody posting anything about it. So I'm like, maybe they have different rules. I don't know. So, but once I hear back, I'll start showing off some of it.
Cool. What's it been like doing that kind of versus doing comics?
It's very different, but I love both of these equally. So too bad for me because I can't
Yeah.
commit to one or the other. I have to do both because I love the illustration. It's like completely different thing,
Hmm.
different rules, everything. And I knew how to illustrate before I knew how to draw a comic
Oh, cool.
because I think drawing a comic book it takes every skill possible
Hmm.
almost because for the comic book I have to do illustration for the cover, but the inside is they're not illustrations, there's something else. It's just I had to learn storyboarding, I had to learn how to compose the page, organize that of speech bubbles,
Mhm.
motion, but not motion. Because like, how do I? And when I started out, I didn't know how to format it right at
Yeah.
the beginning,
Mhm.
and because I had illustration as a skill, but I didn't have everything it took to do comics. And and you have to know how to do everything, a background and the same characters over and over, and
Yeah.
how to communicate, action, or it has some rules that are similar to movies,
Mhm.
in a sense. So at the beginning, I was trying to make it to tell it in almost a storyboarding form,
Mhm.
because when I tell the story in my head, it's a movie.
Yeah.
It's short. It's like it's like working as a movie, but you can't just put that in a comic book.
Yeah.
It's different thing. So
Mhm.
it took me a long time to get to the point where, okay, I can do that, and I can do it like that, and it's kind of, I decide which part of the movie I show and where in the camera I
Mhm.
stop, and the shape of the the image, everything, and how many I put in one page, and how much text I put in there, where, and it
Yeah.
has its own rules, but it's very
Mhm.
subtle, and you have to learn how to do all that to make it work. So it feels nice when you read, right? Just so you feel the action, and you know where everything is, and you have a sense of space, and
Mhm.
you're not confusing the reader as to where you are in that space. And it's very difficult. I think like comic art is more difficult than anything else.
Yeah. It
But
seems like
art,
it would be.
yeah. It took me so long because I just I needed to acquire all these skills before I was ready. Okay, no, I'm comfortable. I can do this, and get going, because
Yeah.
yeah, it's a lot.
It is a lot.
It's
It's
hard.
such it's an interesting medium. And as a writer too, it was, I feel like, kind of a similar process because I wrote poetry and a little bit of prose before I got into writing comics. Um, and it's like writing for a visual medium, but not just a visual medium. It's not like writing for TV or film. It's
Mhm,
a visual medium where like stuff, you have to show stuff happening over time, but it doesn't actually unfold in real time like a movie does.
mhm. Yeah.
And so it does have these, because of that, like all of these rules that you have to kind of figure out, and just like pacing and learning to write in a way so that like exciting things happen on the page turn, or like just
Mhm,
pacing a page out correctly, knowing when to like slow down time if there's like something you want to focus on, and when to speed up time if it's like an exciting fight scene or something. um
mhm.
it was it was a process to learn how to how to write.
Yeah, it's very complicated. And when you write that, are you the one to, do you choose, okay, this amount of writing goes into this page, or do you have somebody storyboarding, or like deciding, okay, I can put this much of the story in this page? How do you
I do. I don't. I let the artists kind of do the storyboards and kind of
mhm,
determine more of the layout, unless it's like something specific. If it's like I want a splash page with like one small panel for like a specific purpose or something like that, then I'll say that. But otherwise, I'll let the artist storyboard it because they're better at that than me. Um,
yeah, because
but I do
that's
like fairly full scripts, like panel by panel scripts, um, with like a fair amount of description. But then I always tell the artists too, like if you can think of a better way to do this with like a different number of panels or different angles or whatever, like definitely do that. Because
yeah.
artists just visualize things better than I do. I just, for the way that my own brain works, I kind of need to write things out in like a fair amount of detail just so I know in my own head that I'm not forgetting anything important. Um,
Yeah.
but then, yeah, I'll always tell the artists like if there's a better way to do this, definitely.
Yeah, I
Let that
think like
out.
the storyboarding part is one of the toughest,
Yeah.
definitely.
Hmm.
Yeah, and I have, I just write my script as just a regular text, and then I go back over it and I reread it and I see, okay, how do I visualize this part?
Yeah.
How
Hmm.
much of a page or how much of a divide do I need to show this thing?
Yeah. That's really interesting.
It's
Since you're doing your own art,
yeah,
do it that. I don't know what I would, I don't know how I would write if I were doing my own art too, if I'd write the same way, or if I would do more of a like looser script and then go back and storyboard it. That's really interesting.
yeah. It's just because I don't need to communicate that to anybody
Yeah.
except myself,
Hmm.
right? So I can just write like normally, and then I go back and then I storyboard it and I see how much I can fit in there in a coherent way
Hmm.
and how much of the dialogues goes in. And then I just put a little space. Okay, that was a page. And then it just like that. But yeah, and sometimes it's just one sentence takes 5 pages because it was,
Yeah.
something very actiony or that
Yeah.
needed to be shown in
Yeah.
that many different
Yeah. That's
it,
funny.
yeah, it's very complicated. But then there's the whole part of, yeah, I think that's the part where you're really very active in the head, where the
Hmm.
brain part is I have to think really hard, and I like to do it in section, right? Either I'm all writing, or I'm all storyboarding, and it take the whole day. I try to storyboard a few pages, and then I go into this the rendering part where I actually draw the page, right? And that's the boring part because it's always the same. that's yeah, that's the one I have to really keep my attention on that because
Yeah.
it's just a routine thing.
That's funny. It's really interesting. Different creators, different processes.
Mhm.
It's and since
Yeah.
it is there isn't just like one kind of standard format like there is with like a screenplay. I feel like you can kind of come at it in whatever way works best for you, which is another thing I like about comics.
Comics are fun. It's really, yeah, it's very creative. And I love illustrations too. It's just way more simple, straightforward in that sense, because they give me a little text, a little paragraph, and okay, illustrate that, right? Put that in the
Yeah.
format, but it's just one image, and so I have fun composing that into a single frame, and then it's just a matter of pulling it off, right? And just rendering it and make it look really nice, and then just complying with whatever they need, right? It's like a puzzle solving.
Yeah.
It's just a simpler one. Because like the comic is so much puzzle
Yeah.
solving. That's
Yeah.
so many different layers.
Mhm.
And then it's just a lot of background work for the art too, because I have to do modeling, like I gotta do 3D modeling for
Wow.
the architecture and things. Whenever there's buildings, I create the building in 3D so that I can, rotate it around in space so it's very clear where we are. I try to have, elements that can recognize, okay, which way are we
Hmm.
looking, right? Because sometimes we look one character, the other character, right? And sometimes, I know you're not supposed to, but I flip around the camera. But I only do it if there's something very clear about the space that
Mhm.
show us that, oh, we flipped around.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
so I always try to do it in a way that's very visual, so you know that we're on the other side now.
Yeah.
Because there's something to that side and something to the other side that we'll see or we won't. So I think it works, but hopefully. I know this kind of a rule. I think that you're not supposed to do that. Like, so a character was on the left, and you kind of stay with that character on the left, even if you can rotate a little bit, but they remain on this that side where
Mhm.
they were, right? And you
I
kind
think
of
it's
try to
one of those
stick to
rules
them.
that like you're not supposed to break unintentionally, but if you break it intentionally, like knowing what you're doing, it's probably okay.
I
But
think
I
it's
have to
okay
think
because I think people who read it and saw it happen were,
that.
I don't think they were confused. They were like, oh, we're here now, right?
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
hopefully I've done it right. I think that's the thing. Like I don't have any other reference point other than my illustration work and uh, how I just have because I'm self-taught, right? I just figure out as I go and try to figure out something work or if it doesn't, I just try to learn from does it feel wrong? Is it not working? And then I try to figure out why, and then I try to figure out why it worked, and then that's how I learn. So I don't have somebody else to tell me,
Yeah.
who's like incredibly mastered this craft to tell me, oh, that's wrong or this doesn't
Yeah.
work, right? I just have to figure out by myself.
Yeah.
So hopefully it works.
Awesome.
I try to be very self uh, critique. I critique myself
Hmm.
thoroughly. I try to,
Yeah. Yeah. Just not easy, but but good to do.
yeah, yeah. I try to get better at it. But at the same time, it needs to be coherent. I think there is, how with comics you see usually, especially for comics that go for so long, how the art evolves
Yeah.
from the start to finish. Like it's been years. And I think
Yeah.
there is a difference because there's some things that I learned as I went, you know, make mistake or I could try something. It's like, oh, the character looks better like this. I'm gonna start drawing them like this now, right? And so they change a little bit over time.
Um,
So
yeah.
that's kind of
Even with
fun
like
too.
writing, like with no spell, it was so long ago. I feel like when I wrote the original scripts for it, and I've been like over time just making little edits like here and there, and I feel like I can notice it when I read the earlier issues versus like the later scripts. I don't know if other people notice it, but I feel like my writing has changed over time.
Yeah, even just you as a person, you've evolved
Yeah.
from
Hmm.
that. So maybe your perspective on things or your views are different or your interests.
Yeah.
And that's a difficult part of writing a story for so long is that
Yeah.
you kind of move on to other things and now it's not really the focus of the story is not the same anymore. It's like I don't do you write uh as you go, how you develop the story, or do you have like you had the whole thing from start to finish and kind of
Yeah.
filled in the middle, or I don't know.
So far, with no spell, I wrote it's 6 issues, and I wrote all 6 issues at once. Um, I'm I'm not sure if I'm going to do that with the next projects that I'm kind of working on, or if I'm going to do a little bit more as I go. I've got another series coming up that's going to be 5 issues, and I've got the first two written. And I think I'm at least going to write the first three before we start on the art. But I'm probably going to wait a little bit and then move on to the next couple and like stagger it a little bit. Um, just because it's a lot to write all the scripts at once. Um, but I'll probably go back and forth for different projects. I think different things for different projects.
Yeah, because the way I wrote the Angel's Flower, I had I had a good chunk of the start, the first half done, and then I had an idea of how it ended.
Mhm.
But because it's been so many years, once I got to the middle part,
Mhm.
I rewrote the second half 6 or 7 times. And and I keep rewriting it. And I think now I get it
Yeah.
to where I wanted to go, but I still need to finish writing, the middle parts. Right? It's like, okay, I've written all this. And because I wrote so many things, no, I have to fulfill the the parts that I opened in the middle.
Yeah.
So okay, it was very difficult. Okay, this needs to go somewhere, this needs to go somewhere, this needs to go somewhere, right?
Yeah.
And I'm trying to do it in a way that doesn't take a million years to resolve, right?
It's hard. I feel like that's one of the hard things with like serialized comics. Because as they come out, like then you start to think like, oh, well, I could have done this differently, or I could have done this differently. But either like you can't because earlier issues are already out, or if you
Mhm.
can, then you have to like rework other stuff because of what you've already done. Whereas I think
Yeah,
like if you just wrote a like a graphic novel or like a novel, you could just change it all before it goes out. But
yeah,
with comics, when like some of it's already out there,
yeah.
it
It's
makes
already
it
set
hard.
into pages. You have to go
Yeah,
with it. Even if you wrote something a little wonky earlier,
yeah.
yeah, it's there now.
That's funny.
Yeah, I would have done, because of all the time that's passed, I would have done things differently, but you know, it is what it is now. I have to
I feel like
accept it.
that. Hmm,
Just
that's
make the best of it.
yeah. I know. I feel like that too with stuff.
Even things like the main character in Angel's Power, when I the very first iteration of it before I started drawing it, she was going to be a guy.
Hmm. Oh, cool.
And at some point way back then, I turned her into a woman because I don't know, representation of something, and just felt obligated to do that because I had so many I had so many dudes in the story. It was like, where are the women? And I was like, well, if I turn the protagonist into a woman, that's a lot of women, or
Yeah.
because she's gonna be there a lot. So
Mhm.
okay, I'll do that. But I kind of regret doing that. I think it would have been better if she had been a guy because I would have related to her more and connected with her more. And I think it would have made all the dynamics more interesting to me. I think I should have done it because it wasn't my idea to do that. It was just kind of at the time there was this thing about, oh, we need more female protagonists because there wasn't a lot the media at the time, especially in comics. And it was like, okay, well, but I shouldn't have done that. I should have just done what I wanted to do. So I'm not gonna do that mistake again. I mean, she's cute as a protagonist. She's adorable, but you know, just for me,
Yeah.
I should have done it differently.
Yeah. I
I
feel
just
like that's something that yeah, think about a lot with like writing too. Like, what do I really be doing?
right. It's like I have to do it for me first,
Hmm.
and then and not really think about the rest. To be honest,
Hmm.
I have to do it from the heart.
Yeah, I think that's true because it's easy to like want to just follow the trends or like see what's popular on Kickstarter or something and try to write to that.
Mhm.
But that's like that's not authentic, and that's not like
Yeah,
your writing is going to be better when you're writing something that you really care about.
yeah, I think so. I think that's the one regret I have about this comic. If I could have gone back and changed something, that's what I would have done. I think it would have made it so much better.
It sounds like it's still a cool story. It
It's
still
still fine. It's still
sounds
cool. It's fine.
awesome.
It's just, yeah, just for my own sake, I
Yeah.
should have done that. And I won't make that mistake again, once, even the way I write it now, how it's unfolding, I'm paying attention to what how I want it to resolve. Right? I
Yeah.
don't think about anything else. I
Yeah.
just want to make it in a way that I enjoy.
Yeah. Sure.
And yeah, the next books that I have ideas for, I'm not making that mistake again. It's gonna be what I want. It's gonna
I
be
think
so
that's
much
the
better.
thing about writing too. Like you take what you learn and then apply it to the next project.
Yeah, yeah. It's just
Sure, I feel
kind of grow as you go.
it. Hmm. Oh,
Yeah.
So anything else about the project, about Angel's Power, or about any gaming illustration, or anything you wanted to make sure to mention?
No, it's all good. I mean, I also have an online course that I do, but
Oh,
it's in
cool.
French, so it's not probably not the audience, but I do have a course
Awesome. Like an
online, and
art
it's
course, or
yeah, it's a anatomy for artists kind of course.
oh, cool, very cool.
Um, yeah, it's pretty cool. It's from digital painting school, it's called.
Oh, nice.
It's a French learning community for artists. It's very cool.
Oh, cool.
And I'm just one of the instructor on there. This Gaetan Welzer is the main uh, um, teacher on there, and he's created this in this community. It's pretty cool.
Oh, nice. That's very cool.
But yeah, it's like that's how divided I am with everything. I have
I feel like that
my
too.
illustration, I have that, and then I have my comic book, and I love all of them equally. It's terrible.
But I feel like that's yeah, it's good to have all of these creative things. It's a lot, but it's a good thing.
Yeah, yeah, because I just love teaching art too. And that's very time consuming is well it just took well this one is just a course I took. It took me 7 months to make the course because it's just video, and it's long. It's like 40 hours of video,
Wow.
and there was so much
A
work.
lot.
And then it took us a couple more months just to go back and correct and retouch and just make it nice. It just yeah, 9 months worth of work,
Wow. It's a lot of work.
and then yeah, no, now people can just buy it, and then I still go and give advice and correct people. And uh,
Mhm.
next month later, we're doing a live also where we just all gather and I correct anatomic drawings for the students, and we just go live, and it's really fun.
Oh, awesome. That's
It's
cool.
just a very
That
nice
sounds really fun.
atmosphere. Yeah, everybody's so nice. Just a nice community
Yeah,
that is
creative
built.
communities are the best.
Yeah, it's great. But yeah, it's just that's I'm so spread out. And then I have to get the work on preparing the next Kickstarter for the book so that we
It
can
never
get it
ends.
printed because that would be nice.
Started from the bottom.
Yeah,
Well, it's been great chatting.
yeah, it's nice.
Thanks for coming on. I'll be sure to share your website and all of your links in the show notes.
That's super nice. Thank you so much for having me.
Ah,
It was very nice meeting you.
oh, you too.